And good morning from the headquarters for the West Tigers and their main training facilities here at Concord Oval. And I'm pleased to be joined by Dene Halatau, former West Tigers premiership winner and now NRL ambassador, works in the Welfare and Education Department with the NRL at present after retiring last year. Good morning, Dene.
Good morning, David. Thanks for having me and interviewing me.
As a former player and as now someone who's working in the NRL and in this specific welfare and education space, what are some of the more prominent challenges facing Pacifica players in terms of their decisions off the field, whether it be socially or in terms of a career and retirement?
Oh, look, I think the main challenge for the boys is just some of the cultural awareness that people probably don't have of where they come from, their upbringing and their family values, and some of the pressures that they may face at home as well. So there's a number of things, I guess, for them that we'd love to see, and that's for them to aspire to roles within the game in administration, coaching, training, welfare, wellbeing education, the space that I'm in at the moment. But a big part of what we do at the NRL is trying to encourage the boys to develop themselves off the field and really get that life balance right.
And what are some of those programs that are implemented by the NRL in terms of helping these players out in terms of those career choices?
Well, I guess the programs that the NRL runs are across the whole game, not specifically targeted to Pacifica players, but we run a whole heap of mandatory workshops. We do a workshop called Call It For What It Is, which is about making strong decisions, social media awareness, some of the pitfalls that they may face, that some of the boys face in social media.
Does the NRL still have the cultural leadership camps for the Pacifica and Indigenous players?
Well, the Indigenous players had their camp just before the week leading up to the All-Stars match. I think it was the week before that, which George Rose and Dean Witters were a big part of facilitating. And the Pacifica Leadership Camp was on last year. It would have been November, December, around that time. Nigel Vungana put that together, which I was fortunate enough to sit in on. And we identified a number of leaders in the Pacifica space across the game, and they attended the camp. And it was good to see those guys sort of come out of the shell a bit, and it was pretty obvious that the reason that they were chosen by their respective clubs was the leadership qualities that they sort of displayed in that camp. And for us, it was about trying to get them to develop personally off the field those leadership qualities and go back to clubland and be really strong leaders within the group. Be a voice for the other Pacifica players if there's any sort of issues that they feel that they might be facing, and it might be as simple as just some communication barriers that they might be facing, and how to help guide those boys through those issues.
And how important are role models in that context for Pacifica players in particular, given their different culture and in particular their somewhat cultural obligation to their family and to sharing their success? So how important are role models in terms of making the right choices and basically, pursuing a healthy life, I suppose, outside of the game?
Yeah, well, making healthy choices, making strong choices is a really big one because, from a young age, if you're identified as a talent in the game, and we're seeing so many more players of Pacifica background that are coming into the game and have probably more money than they're used to in terms of being young, and then all of a sudden getting onto a first grade contract. Our minimum contracts for first graders start at $85,000, which is above, I think, the national average.
Yeah.
So for young guys of any background to be really getting that much money at a young age is a challenge in itself. Yeah, it is really important for the boys to seek out mentors when they're in the game. A big one for me was Nigel Vungana, who is now working over in New Zealand in the wellbeing education space, and he really paved the way, and Frank Pullatua as well, who works in commercial at the NRL and is a really big part of strategy up there. And those type of guys that work in high level positions in the game and really have an influence in key decisions. For me, they were the guys that I looked up to towards the back end of my career, or probably for the last 5 years of my career.
Okay.
Those guys are the ones that kind of guided me.
What was the biggest thing that you took from Nigel Vungana and Frank Pulatua in terms of what was the best thing to do once you retired?
Well, to be honest, one thing Nigel said to me is you've got to pay the bills. So they don't stop. I was fortunate enough that I had a passion for working in this space, in the wellbeing education space, and I'd done quite a bit, as I said, over the past 4 or 5 years in volunteering my time to do that. So it was a fairly comfortable fit.
In light of that, why aren't more Polynesian or Pacifica players becoming coaches in retirement, do you think?
I'm not too sure. I don't know what the what the general aspiration is. Coaching's a very stressful job, I would say. Just watching what our head coaches go through. It's a fairly tough role that I wouldn't want to take on.
High pressure environment as well.
Very high pressure environment. But again, we want to open up the boys' eyes to the opportunities that are out there. Considering that we make up a large percentage of the playing group, it makes sense that we create opportunities for those guys post football, to in part give back to the game, but also be a part of the game moving forward and be a part of the next generation of Pacifica players that are coming through the game, so that there's that really deeper understanding of some of the challenges, not necessarily challenges, but some of the cultural differences that they may have, and how to I guess be empathetic of different situations that they might be in. So I'm not too sure why we don't see more coaches that are of a Pacifica background in the game at the moment, but that's not to say that that's not happening. There's players not actively pursuing that as we speak. We might see that sort of unfold in the next 2, 3, 4 years, however long. There is a number of Pacifica background former players and Pacifica background individuals that work in the game now, and I think now that it's started, we'll start seeing more and more. In administration roles as well. I would love to see some Pacifica players in executive positions, in management roles.
CEO one day.
CEO one day. That'd be great.
We saw a couple of weeks ago the very successful Pacific Test out at Campbelltown, drew 18,271 people from memory. How important are fixtures like that in terms of promoting what the NRL is doing in the welfare and education space that particularly affects Pacifica players?
Oh, look, I think it's more important to have it there because, like I said before, there's such a strong number. There's such a talent pool of Pacifica players that those games are really important for the international game, to give those nations the recognition they deserve in terms of the talent that they're producing. I was out of the Pacific Test, and the atmosphere there was unbelievable. The people turned up to watch their teams play because they were passionate about representing their nation, and that's something that Pacifica people are very strong on, is passionately representing where they're from and their heritage. And I'm fortunate that because I do work in the game now, and because I grew up in Australia. I was born in New Zealand. I grew up in Australia, but through my involvement with rugby league, I've been able to reconnect and learn a little bit more about my heritage and my culture and my background, and I continue to do that. And it's something that I want to really get better at, is having a deeper understanding of my roots and where I come from. And I don't think I would have been able to do that without the game, without rugby league.
Well, Dean, thank you so very much for your time, and wish you all the best in your future endeavours, and all the best for the Tigers for the rest of the year. And once again, thank you so very much.
No worries. Thanks, David.